Hi everyone and welcome back. In today's video I'm going to be doing a review and demonstration of the Arteza Everblend art markers, and I'll also be sharing some blending tips as well. The Everblend art markers are an alcohol-based double-ended marker with a chisel tip on one end and a fine tip on the other. I'll be looking today at the 60 pack and the marker case, which currently retails on the Arteza website for $69.99 US. Online prices obviously vary, but that is just over $1 a marker, and that price includes the case as well. I want to quickly say thank you to Arteza for sending me the set to review and for supporting my channel in general. I'm sure you've heard of Arteza before. They make a large range of very affordable art and craft supplies, from coloured pencils to watercolours and markers to polymer clay and vinyl. Even though this set was sent to me by Arteza to test out, this is not a sponsored video, and all the opinions and thoughts in this review are honest and my own, as always with all my reviews. So let's get started and take a look at the case. The case is very sturdy. It has two buckle clasps on the front, plus a strip of Velcro on the inside flap. There is an adjustable shoulder strap and a little carrying handle on the top of the bag as well. There's a small back pocket with a zip, and the shoulder strap can be taken off the case if you want. Opening up the case, right away the markers look lovely inside. There's a wide variety of colours and the case holds the markers really well. It is, as I said, made from really sturdy fabric. The markers fit in their elastic slots and they're not going to move around. The case also has Velcro tabs on both sides, so the case can be completely opened up flat, and so you can lay it flat on your table, or you can take out the markers with the case standing upright. You can work both ways. This is another feature I really liked about this case. I felt it had been well designed, and I like storage solutions that are flexible. The case holds 72 markers, but this set comes with 60, so the case has 12 extra slots that you can use. The extra row of slots is at the back of the case. I tested a few different supplies to see what fitted. Coloured pencils, fine liners, other markers, they all fitted perfectly. With the pencils and the fine liners, I could actually get 2 of them in each slot. And if you need to carry extra supplies with your markers, then there is room in the case for them. There is a height limit though, and if you put in a pen that's over 16 centimeters or so, the lid flap of the case can't close. Another thing that I found here was that I could fit my A5 sketchbook into that empty space there. So instead of putting in extra pens into the bag, I could fit my sketchbook in instead. It's snug, but it does fit. That was just an extra thing that I found. The pocket at the back of the case is wide, but I couldn't fit my sketchbook in there. It's quite a tight pocket, so it could fit a few pens, maybe a very slim sketchbook, but nothing that's too wide. So I think that's about all I have to say about the case itself. I really liked the case. It's not only great for storing the markers, but it's also perfect for carrying them around. I also saw that on the Arteza website they sell the case on its own. So if you liked the look of this case but you don't need the markers, then there is the option of just buying the case. The markers have a triangular barrel design. The colours, the colour names and the reference numbers are printed on both caps of each marker. There's a printed colour line around the fine tip end of the pen, so you can easily tell when you're picking up your marker which end is which. The markers are double-ended with a fine nib on one end and a chisel nib on the other, as well as the colour printed on the fine tip end of the marker. There's also a symbol on each end to indicate the nib that's on that end of the pen. These markers are broadly a little bit bigger in size compared to the other brands that I have, particularly the Pro markers and the Copic, and the chisel nib is also a bit larger in comparison as well. This doesn't make any difference to the quality of the markers, it's just a couple of design observations. I also found that the triangular barrel stopped the Arteza markers from rolling around too much on the table as I was working, and that was a nice feature of the marker design. The first thing I did was to swatch out all the colours. I used my regular marker paper for this. It's always a good idea to swatch your supplies on the paper you normally use to colour, because sometimes the colours can vary a bit or react differently depending on the paper. The colour selection was really nice, a good variety of different shades. I was happy to see some greys in the set and a couple of neutrals as well. I personally would have liked more browns and even more neutrals to be included, and that's just because I use a lot of browns in my colouring, and this set has only 4 brown colours really, and so that's just something I would have liked more of. I was also glad to see that the set had a good variety of yellows. Sometimes sets don't include many yellows, and again I used yellow quite a lot, so I was happy to have that variety there. Whether or not this colour selection suits you will depend on what you like to colour and your personal preferences. Overall though, I think this set could work for most things. There are lighter shades, mid-tones and darker shades for all the colour groups. There were not any real pastel colours in this set, and that wasn't a problem for me, but if you really need or love very pale colours, then this set may not work for you. The colours on the whole were fairly bright and vibrant, and there were not too many muted colours in this set either. Again, this will depend on your colour preferences, but if you have a set like this, you can layer up colours and dull the more vibrant ones down with the grey tones, and to create more muted colours if you want to. I thought the colours were really lovely, and there were also a few different shades that you could use to create skin tones as well. A couple of peach colours and browns that would work for colouring different people. Those are the 59 colours that come in the set, and the 60th marker is a blender. The colours printed on the marker caps generally did an okay job of matching fairly closely to the colours on the paper. It's never going to be exact, but mostly it was pretty good. I found that it was normally the paler colours that were the most off. I'm going to do a few blending tests here and have a look at the marker nibs. I realised today that the video is very long. Apologies if it's too long, but I do try to make my reviews as in-depth as possible so that hopefully they are helpful to if anyone is looking for information on the product. Looking at the nibs, as I said, there's a chisel and a fine nib, which is not a brush nib. It's similar to the fine nib on the Pro markers, and it's actually a little bit larger than the one on the Pro markers. Generally speaking, markers that have brush nibs are more expensive, and the higher quality the brush nibs, the more expensive the marker is. Brush nibs certainly do make blending a lot easier, but you can still get smooth blending with the fine and chisel nibs, as well as thick and thin lines. Generally, I found colouring larger areas much easier with the chisel nibs, and then I used the fine nibs for colouring smaller areas. There was also one dried up marker in the batch. It was a dark blue, and it was pretty dry and streaky when colouring. I don't know how common this is with these markers, but there was one dried marker in my set of 60. The marker ink though was really good, and I got smooth colouring and lots of really good blends with all sorts of different colours. I did some tests with blending the same colour groups together, darker and lighter shades of the same colours, and then I tried ones that were from different colour groups, and I found that all of them were blending really well. I didn't find the lack of a brush nib here to be a problem. Yes, it is sometimes easier to blend with the brush nib, but I didn't have any trouble using the fine nib or the chisel nib to blend the colours. In this next section, I'll share a few blending tips that I find helpful. I did a couple of drawing tests with the markers. I really like to use the supplies, do some colouring, do some drawing with them before I make the review video. That way I can get a really good feel for how the markers work. So I'm going to colour this little potted plant I've drawn out here. The first and probably most important tip I have for getting a smooth blend, especially with markers that don't have brush nibs, although this tip does apply to them as well, is to work in layers and to always overlap your strokes. Go backwards and forwards a few times as you're colouring and you'll get a much smoother result. As you can see, I colour a little bit, go back over my strokes, then go forwards, then go back a bit, and so on, so that I'm covering the area at least twice with a layer of marker ink and overlapping all my strokes. Another thing that can be useful when you're working with the fine nib is to work in small circular motions as you're colouring, and also to use the different marker nibs to their advantage. Whenever I had a large area to cover, I used the chisel nib because they were much better at covering the larger areas. I'm still overlapping my strokes, going backwards and forwards. Normally with a large area I work fairly quickly because the marker ink dries quite quickly, and for bigger areas I want to blend that first layer as much as possible before it dries completely. I also find that working in circular motions, particularly with a fine nib, makes it easier to overlap my strokes. When I'm blending different colours together, I'm always working in multiple layers to create the smooth transition. I like to go from light to dark and then back to light again, always blending the darker layers with the lighter colours. The plant pot had 3 to 4 layers to create the finished blend, so if you're having trouble blending and getting a smooth transition between the colours, then you just might need more layers. Blending colours in threes is also really helpful, and by that I mean having a light shade, a mid-tone, and then a darker shadow colour. I like to colour my whole area in with the lightest colour first. I just put a base coat of that lighter colour down and try and get that first base coat as a smoother blend as possible, going backwards and forwards with the marker, overlapping all my strokes, and fill the area in with the lightest colour. Then I like to go in straight away with my darkest shadow colour, put down that colour where I want my shadows, and then use the middle colour of the 3 to blend the darker shade into the lighter one and to blend it all together. Then I'll take the lighter colour and blend the mid-tone into that, and just keep going like that, adding some dark colour, using the mid-tone to blend the dark colour into the light colour, and then using the light colour to blend the mid-tone into the light colour. I hope that that makes sense. I really find that layers is a good way to create a smooth blend with any marker. The marker that I didn't use here today was the blender, and as I said, this set does come with a blender pen, but I find that I don't really use blenders when I'm colouring at all. I find that the marker blender pens don't really blend colours together exactly. They tend to push the ink away on the paper, or they lift it up. You can get a lot of interesting effects with the colourless blender markers, but I don't find them very useful for blending different colours together. One thing that I like to look at with markers, but also other art supplies as well, is the long-term sustainability of the product. So refills and how can I get more when they run out. The nibs for these markers are replaceable, so you can get a pack of 10 nibs, I think it is, and you can swap the nibs if you need to. Now that's really great that they sell replaceable nibs. If you end up with a nib fraying, I haven't had one fray yet, but if you have one, you can get a replacement set and you can replace them. Now I don't know whether you'd end up using up the marker ink before the nibs need replacing. Generally, I find that with markers, I use up the ink well before I need to replace the nibs, but there are refills available if you need them. The markers themselves, though, are not currently refillable, nor are they available individually open stock. I asked Arteza, or is it Arteza? I've actually heard people pronounce it both ways, but anyway, I asked them about this and they said that they were looking into possible refills in the future, but that's just a possibility for now. So at the moment that I'm doing this review, there is not a refill option available for the markers. There are about 60 colours for sale on their websites in sets of 4. So if there's one colour that you use a lot of and you need 4 more markers of that same one colour, they do have that option available that you can buy that one colour again. Now personally for me, as someone who uses markers on a very regular basis, I prefer refillable markers, or at least ones you can buy individually open stock. It's often more economical in the long term to get refillable markers, and it's also more environmentally friendly to refill the same marker instead of constantly buying new ones and throwing the old ones away. That said, if you're looking for a starter set of markers, or you don't use markers too often and you just want a set that you can quickly pull out and use every now and then these Arteza markers may be perfect for you. When you're looking to invest in a set of markers, they can be so expensive, and if you're not sure if you're going to like them, you want to test out a set, then I think these are really good for the price point. They're just over $1 a marker, and for an alcohol-based marker, that's a really good price. Also, if you're someone who gets intimidated by owning an expensive art supply, I know that sometimes that if something costs a lot of money, that you or we can feel like we don't want to use that supply up because it costs so much money, or we don't want to use it to practice, we only want to use it for perfect work, and then we end up not really using the art supply at all. I hope that makes sense. I think some of you may know where I'm coming from here. My point is that if this happens to you, then this set, as it's a much more affordable price point, this may be a good fit and you can use it to practice, and then if you end up loving markers and you use up all the colours, you can get more or look at investing in a refillable set. You can pretty much use all alcohol-based markers together, so you can mix and match different brands and use them all together. So overall, I really liked these markers. I think they're really good value for money. The nibs are not brush nibs, but you can still get lovely blends with them, and the ink is good. I thought the case design was good as well. I like it when an art supply company provides a storage solution or a storage container within the packaging. There was one marker in the set that was streaky and dry. As I said, I don't know how common that is for these markers, but I should think that if you ended up with a dry or a streaky marker, you could contact the company, and I expect they could help you out with that. I guess the biggest downside for me is the fact that the markers are not refillable, but that's really just because I use markers a lot and I would get through the ink quite quickly, so having something that's refillable just makes more sense for me. I'll also be doing a tutorial using the portrait tone set of the Arteza markers, and that will be coming up soon on my channel. I really hope that this video was helpful if you were looking at these markers, and please feel free to leave any questions in the comments down below and I'll do my best to get back to you. There are links to the markers and a discount code in the description box below, and thank you again to Arteza for sending me along this set to test out. Thank you all for watching and have a creative day.